So about a year and a half ago is when I had Sawyer, and I was just terrified because I had already had a scary pregnancy. Merida's pregnancy was really scary, and her delivery, and with my miscarriages. And I was squatted and had to go on an ambulance ride an hour and a half away from my home. And so I get down there and they start the induction process, and I was 34 weeks and like 5-6 days. So it's scary. And everything, there's a lot of like domino effects of like, they do one kind of process and that doesn't work, so they move on to the next one to try to get him out of there. And I was like, I'm gonna try to do as much as I can, And so the next day, I delivered him that night, and he was so safe and so perfect and so healthy. And but he did, just because he was so young, they kind of put him on like a watch. And of course you can't eat in labor, so he came out with lower blood sugar. So that was being monitored, and I was told that we'd have to go to the NICU, and that is a whole different kind of ball game. And so he was put into the NICU, and I was still hooked up on IVs and on a magnesium drip, which makes you very, very sick. But they don't want me to have a seizure from my preeclampsia, which got us in the NICU to begin with. And so I didn't leave a side, and luckily that hospital is about 15 minutes away from where I grew up, and my parents had Merida. First time I was away from her, so that was, for such a long period of time. And I was just exhausted, and Clint was like, being Superman and trying to go feed our animals and drive back and forth and visit Merida every day. And I just stayed in that uncomfortable NICU chair with huge tree trunks for legs. I was so swollen, and the nurses come in and they're just so nice, and they are all your friend. And they talk to you and they see how tired you are. And one night, one of my night nurses came in, and she had just got back from like bereavement, and she'd been out of work for a long time because she had found her son. He passed away in their home, and she found him, and he was about 20, and she had, I think, 5 kids total. And we started talking about that, and I was like, I lost my brother when he was 19, and it's so hard, and I'm so sorry. And she was just in tears the whole time, and it was so sad. And so we just keep talking that night, and I'm holding Sawyer, and it was so beautiful because it was like I'm talking to her about something that I had experience with, and here she's helping me with my NICU baby and all these wires, and we're just helping, it was just really nice. And so she starts telling me that her youngest was having so many issues with, not that you wouldn't have any issues with it, but that she seemed to be taking it the hardest, and she was the one that she was most concerned about, and that she was 14 and just kind of going crazy with, the loss of her older brother, and they were really close. And I was like, oh my God, I just froze for a minute because, I lost my brother when I was 13, right before I turned 14, and I thought, I can help you. And it was just this like full circle moment where I felt like there was a purpose in all this tragedy that I went through, because I was like, let me tell you how I felt when I was a young teen, as if like being a 14-year-old girl isn't confusing enough. And then, losing your role model. And she's like, oh my, it was just such a raw, connecting, supportive moment. She just really wanted to hear what I had to say, and I really needed to tell her, because I was like, I could have saved myself and my parents so much heartache in my teen years if I had known someone in my situation. And it was just really cool to me in a really tragic way, I guess. But, there's no credentials for that. Like, it doesn't matter, you know, how successful you are, how smart or educated you are. Like, I might have been the only one, like, person in this woman's path who has experienced the loss of an older brother at such a, like, vulnerable age. And I thought, like, let me help you. Like, let me tell you what might help her. Let me tell you what might help you. Let me share my story. And we just talked, oh my gosh, we just talked for so long, probably most of our shift. And, yeah, it was just, and then here, you know, she was helping me with Sawyer, and we just were helping each other with our babies in completely different mom modes. You know, there's this veteran mom of like 5 or 6 kids, and I'm a toddler in the motherhood world, and so it was just really cool, really powerful.
And what has come from that huge breakthrough of a moment? What have you realized?
That I need to talk about it more, and how healing it is. I've always wanted to write about losing a sibling. There's so many resources out there for parents who have lost children, as there should be, because I mean, I can't imagine. But especially with younger siblings, you get lost in translation, because everyone's taking care of the parents in this like horrible moment, just trying to get your family to move forward. And sometimes the kids are just kind of left to themselves. Or I've heard a lot of stories of kids who have to take on so much, like maybe they're the older sibling, and see that I didn't have that experience because I was the baby. And so I just think I had a much more rougher time. I had a longer stretch until I was an adult that I had to get through. And so now it's inspired me to officially write my book on it, and I have started that, and I hope, I don't know, I don't have an end date, but I'm hoping by the end of the year that it's mostly put together, and I want to get it out there. Like, there's a lot of people out there who could hear that and it'd be helpful to them.
If someone watching this video has lost a sibling, what would you say to them? What would be some advice that you would give them?
Do it if it seems crazy. But heal in your own way. You know, there was so much that you think that would help you. Like, even one of the things I like to do with my brother was go to Chipotle with him and his friends. And I always remember thinking, like, and they had the favorite Chipotle that wasn't in the town that we lived in. Like, they drove 15 minutes to this Chipotle. And I just remember, like, wanting to ask people to take me there a lot. Because I thought, if I just go sit down at a table and eat that. And I didn't, because I'm like, that's dumb, and I'll inconvenience people, and, you know, people won't want to do that for me. And looking back, I would have had so many Chipotle dates willing to sit there and eat Chipotle with me in that restaurant. And there are a lot of things like that, things that you think could just kind of help, or, I don't know, maybe feel closer. So just do what seems crazy to you. Do it, you know, find that peace, and don't worry about how other people look at that. Like, you have to do what brings you the most peace and where you feel closest to your lost loved one.
If your brother was here, what would you say to him?
I would tell him about his niece and nephew. He'd be such a great uncle. He'd be like a funkle, like the funnest uncle ever. He would love them. I don't know. Everything. I would just tell him everything. There'd be movies that I would make him sit down and watch with me that have come out. I don't think anything big and powerful. I would just fill him in on so much that he's missed and try to catch him up as in the shortest amount of time possible.
And the event is called Be Inspired. Can you leave us with some words of inspiration for anyone?
Talk and share your story with people. I think I found that most helpful in miscarriage. So many women have had miscarriages, and that's not to belittle it or make it seem not as important. It makes it more comforting, and you have a bigger support system that you didn't really realize. And we're so shamed by so many kind of common things that happen, and then once you really start talking about things, it's almost like people come out of their shell to tell you that they've had the same thing happen. And that's probably just been this biggest like kind of epiphany I've had in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, is that once I start opening up about things, so many people have things to say about it. Miscarriages, health, I have lots of health issues, and I'm kind of like, I want to always look tough. And I'm kind of like a fake it till you make it, tough it out, hide it away, like, and I think once I started kind of being more vulnerable and talking to people about it, people have good advice. I found a lot of helpful remedies for health issues. I found some really healing things to do when you have miscarriages. Sharing the story about my brother helped this woman and her daughter, and we really have to be okay with being human and just talking to each other and sharing our stories, and that's what I would tell people.